When I woke up after the crash, the doctors called it a miracle. 4 months in a coma, lungs collapsed, ribs shattered. By all logic, I shouldn't have survived. But I did. And survival, I'd later realize, wasn't luck. It was interruption. The one thing that kept me alive long enough to see the truth. My name is Elias Ward. I'm 44, and I own a chain of hardware stores across Montana, Kansas, and the Dakotas. People think this is a story about money, a greedy wife, a fortune on the line. It's not. It's about trust. How the person you love most can be the one tightening the noose with a trembling smile. 8 years ago, I met Celeste. She was everything I thought I needed. Striking red hair, eyes that could talk you into confessing every sin you ever buried. But what pulled me in wasn't beauty, it was brilliance. She spoke the language of ambition. She knew how to build things, how to dream in numbers. She'd been a star real estate agent before she said she wanted to step back to help me build my business. I thought I was blessed. My brother Gavin used to say I'd won the cosmic lottery. She's out of your league, Eli. He'd joke at family barbecues, while Celeste laughed and poured my mother another drink. Even my son Noah, who was 14 when she entered our lives, adored her. She made it easy to believe she belonged. She knew how to make a man feel seen. You built, she'd whisper, tracing my calloused hand. You turn nothing into something. That's a kind of magic, Eli. And I'd believe her. God, I believed her. The night she mentioned life insurance, she'd cooked my favorite meal pot roast with the little golden potatoes she seasoned just right. She poured me wine, took my hand, and said, Eli, we need to talk about something important. For a heartbeat, I thought she was going to tell me she was pregnant. We've been trying for 2 years. But then came the numbers, the spreadsheets, the soft urgency in her voice. If something happens to you, the banks take everything. Noah's future, gone. We need coverage. 15 million should keep us safe. And the way she said us, the way she said Noah, it wrapped around my heart like safety. I didn't see manipulation. I saw love, wearing concern as a mask. The next day, an insurance agent, Mr. Whitlow, thin man, nervous hands, came to our house. Celeste had cookies ready, coffee brewing. She looked like she was hosting a press conference, not a meeting. 15 million, he said, glancing at the forms. That's significant. We can afford it, Celeste replied smoothly. Eli's profits are up 40%. It's just smart planning. She did all the talking. I just signed where Whitlow pointed. And when he asked about beneficiaries, she smiled, that slow, reassuring smile I thought I knew so well. Everything goes to the surviving spouse, she said. Of course, that's standard. But here's the thing about standard arrangements. They're only standard until someone decides to rewrite the rules. And Celeste, she'd been rewriting them since the day she walked into my life. I just didn't realize the game had started long before I knew I was playing. Life looked good, perfect, even. After 20 years of grinding, I'd built my father's old hardware shop into a quiet empire. 12 stores across 3 states, 300 employees, 20 million a year in revenue. From a kid who once stocked paint cans to a man signing contracts in boardrooms. If that's not the American dream, what is? It started with my father's store in Helena, the one he left me when cancer took him too young. Every shelf in that shop still smelled like him, cedar, dust, and diesel. I swore I'd make it something he'd be proud of. And I did. Or at least, I thought I did. Celeste and I had been married 8 years. She'd stood beside me through every late night, every deal, every storm. So when she suggested increasing our life insurance, I didn't blink. It made sense. She always made sense. That night we were having dinner beneath the chandelier. She'd chosen her taste, elegant but grounded. She'd made lasagna, the kind I could never say no to. As she refilled my wine, her green eyes shimmered in the amber light. Eli, she said softly, we need to protect what we've built. If something happens to you, the loans, the mortgages, the equipment, leases, I'd lose everything. Noah would lose his inheritance. She was right. I had millions in loans and property tied up in the business. If I died tomorrow, the banks would circle like vultures. She sounded like she was protecting me, protecting us. My brother Gavin warned me once at his son's 10th birthday, actually. Celeste had planned the whole party because my sister-in-law was sick. Balloons, music, even a bounce house for the kids. She was everywhere, smiling, laughing, the perfect aunt, the perfect wife. Between beers, Gavin leaned in. Something's off about her lately, he said quietly. She's been asking Mom weird questions about Dad's business. Your first marriage, old family stuff. I can't pin it down, but it's odd. I shrugged it off. Maybe she's just trying to feel like part of the family, I said. You know how Mom is. Not exactly welcoming. And that was true. My mother, Martha, had a sharp tongue and an even sharper mind. She'd run the books for my father's store for 40 years and had opinions about everything. She'd never liked my first wife and barely tolerated anyone I dated afterward. But Celeste, she adored. That woman knows business, she told me one afternoon. Spotted an error in your quarterly report that would have cost you thousands. You got lucky with her, Eli. Lucky. That word haunts me now. The insurance agent, Mr. Whitlow, came by on a Tuesday in March. Celeste had the dining room staged like a closing table, folders labeled, documents stacked in color-coded piles, laptop open to her spreadsheets. I'm sorry for the late appointment, Whitlow said, adjusting his glasses. But Mrs. Ward insisted it was urgent. My husband works from dawn to dusk, Celeste replied smoothly, her hand resting on my shoulder. Evening's the only time we get to handle personal matters. She'd even baked cookies. Fresh. Still warm. The room smelled like comfort, like trust. Whitlow flipped through the forms. 15 million in coverage, significant policy. Premiums won't be light. Celeste smiled. We can manage. Eli's profits have risen 40%. This is smart protection. She asked all the right questions about exclusions, riders, contestability periods. Whitlow was impressed. 2 years standard, he explained. After that, the policy pays out regardless of cause except suicide. Accidental deaths have double indemnity, 30 million total if it's an accident. Celeste nodded, making notes in her leather journal. Perfect, she murmured. Eli drives those mountain roads every day to visit stores. I worry constantly, especially in winter. Her tone was so gentle, her concerns so real, that I didn't feel the chill in her words. I didn't see the shadow behind the sweetness. When it came time to sign, she slid each page toward me carefully, hand resting on my knee. This one's the beneficiary designation, she said, smiling. Everything to the surviving spouse. Just as we discussed. I signed. Without reading, why would I? This was Celeste, the woman who nursed me through pneumonia, who stood by me when a flood nearly destroyed our Denver branch, who looked at me like I was her reason to breathe. That night, I signed my name on $15 million and unknowingly on my own death warrant. 3 weeks after I signed those papers, the world around me began to twist quietly, subtly, like a storm forming miles away. It started with something small. My morning coffee. It tasted wrong. Not awful, just off. Metallic, bitter, like pennies dissolved in warmth. I mentioned it to Celeste one morning while she packed my lunch, same way she had for years. She smiled, poured the pot down the drain, and said maybe the machine needs cleaning. I'll run vinegar through it tonight. Here, take this instead. She handed me a travel mug of tea. Something herbal. It's better for your stomach anyway, she said, brushing a crumb off my shirt. All that coffee gives you acid reflux. I didn't remember ever mentioning acid reflux. But I took the tea. It tasted fine, earthy, soothing, problem solved, I thought. Then came the dizziness. The first spell hit me at the billing store, while checking inventory with my manager Hector. 1 second I was reading a shipment log. The next the room started tilting. My knees buckled. I grabbed the shelf, sending cans of stain crashing to the floor. Boss, you okay? Hector caught my arm, concern written all over his face. Just stood up too fast, I muttered, even though I hadn't moved in minutes. It happened again 2 days later at the Great Falls branch. This time, I had to sit down in my office, head between my knees, waiting for the spinning to stop. My assistant wanted to call an ambulance. I waved her off. I'm fine, just tired. Because that's what Celeste kept saying every morning before I left. She'd kiss my cheek and whisper, "You're not 25 anymore, Eli. Slow down. Your body's begging you to rest." Then she started giving me vitamins. Large, chalky, white pills, she said, were for energy. B complex, iron, magnesium. she'd explain, setting them neatly by my breakfast plate. The pharmacist said they are perfect for men your age. I trusted her. I always did. My son Noah noticed first. He came home from Colorado State one weekend. We were grilling in the backyard, and I had to sit down halfway through, twice. Dad, you okay? He asked, taking the tongs from my shaking hand. You look pale. Just tired, I told him. Your stepmother's got me on new vitamins, probably just adjusting. He frowned. What kind of vitamins make you worse instead of better? I chuckled, trying to ease the tension. She's just looking out for me. But that night, I heard them arguing in the kitchen. What are you giving him? Noah's voice, sharp, protective. Vitamins, Celeste replied evenly. Supplements my trainer recommended. Your father doesn't eat right. I'm helping him. He looks sick. He is sick. Stress, exhaustion, decades of bad habits, she snapped, her tone suddenly cold. But thank you for your medical expertise, Noah. How far along are you in that engineering degree again? The sarcasm in her voice chilled me. That wasn't the Celeste I knew. Or maybe it was the one I'd never seen when the lights were off. Later, when I asked about it, she sighed and brushed it away. He's just worried about you. It's sweet, really. But he's 22. He thinks he knows everything. Remember how you were at that age? I wanted to believe her. I needed to. But the night before the accident, everything changed. I got to bed early, too tired to even finish dinner. Through the heating vent, I heard her voice from downstairs. Calm, controlled, icy. Everything's in place, she said. Just be patient. Another week, maybe two. A pause. No, he's not suspicious. He's too tired to be suspicious. My pulse hammered in my ears. Another pause. Then the mountain road. It's perfect. Accidents happen there all the time. My blood turned to ice. I crept to the top of the stairs, listening. I'll make sure he takes the BMW, she whispered. The work's already done. It just needs the right conditions. When she hung up, I barely made it back to bed before she came upstairs. She slipped under the covers, her skin cold against mine, and kissed my shoulder. Sleep well, honey, she murmured. I lay awake all night, every nerve screaming, but my thoughts were slow, muddy, like my mind was wading through fog. The vitamins, the tea, the exhaustion, it all clicked just out of reach. And in the morning she was radiant, too radiant. She made my favorite breakfast, kissed me twice before I left, and stopped me by the door. Take my car today, she said, holding out the keys to her BMW. Yours is making that noise again. I'll drop it at the shop. Her eyes glimmered like sunlight through glass. And for a moment, just a moment, I almost believed she was trying to protect me. The morning began like any other, quiet and ordinary, the kind of silence that hides something sharp beneath it. What noise? I asked her, half distracted. I drove it yesterday, was fine. That grinding when you brake, she said, already reaching for the keys. Men never notice anything until it's too late. She pressed the BMW fob into my hand, her smile not quite reaching her eyes. Take mine, she said softly. I'll deal with the truck. The BMW felt unfamiliar. Not wrong, just foreign. The steering too precise, the engine's hum too controlled. I'd driven Alina's car maybe a dozen times in 8 years. She was possessive about it, almost protective. Always had been. Highway 41 unfolded ahead, the gray ribbon snaking into the mountains. I'd driven that road more times than I could count, every curve, every shadow, every patch of ice in winter etched into muscle memory. But that morning, something felt off. Maybe it was the conversation I'd overheard the night before, or maybe it was the way she watched me leave, lingering at the doorway as if memorizing the moment. 20 minutes in, my phone buzzed. A text from Mason. Hey, can you call me? Found something weird about Alina. I couldn't call then, not on that winding climb. I'd call him at the store. Another text. Eli, this is serious. Pull over. Call me now. But there was nowhere to stop, not until the scenic overlook 5 miles ahead. So I kept driving, the BMW humming higher, climbing toward Devil's Curve, the steepest descent in the pass. 300 feet of drop in less than a mile. That's when I tapped the brakes. For the first time, nothing. Not soft brakes, not weak pressure, nothing. The pedal sank straight to the floor, empty, useless. My heart detonated in my chest. The car surged faster, gravity pulling me down the mountain. 50, 60. 70. I pumped the brakes, desperate. No response. Pulled the emergency brake, a scream of metal, the smell of burning, but no salvation. 80 miles an hour. Devil's Curve, a breath away. The guardrail ahead, rusted and thin, wouldn't stop a bicycle, let alone this. Then my phone lit up. Her name, her picture smiling, frozen from our anniversary dinner. And I understood she was calling to listen, to make sure it was over. I didn't answer. 90. The world was a blur of trees and light and inevitability. Then I remembered the runaway ramp, a steep bed of gravel built after Sammy killed a family a decade ago. I'd passed it 100 times, wondering what kind of soul ever needed it. Now I knew. I yanked the wheel right hard. The BMW hit the ramp like a stone hitting water. Gravel exploded. The airbags burst into my face, white and violent. The seatbelt dug deep into my chest as the car bucked, screamed, clawed its way uphill until finally it stopped. Silence, steam, blood. I was alive. The phone was still ringing. Her again. This time, I answered. Eli? Her voice trembled, perfect in its performance. Oh my God, are you okay? I just had the worst feeling. I tried to speak. Only blood came. Through the cracked glass, I saw headlights. Someone running toward me. Her voice still echoing in my ear. Eli, talk to me, please. The phone slipped from my hand. The last thought before the dark took me was Mason's message. What had he found? Later, investigators would find the truth, brake lines cut clean, precision work, traces of anticoagulants in my blood, a new insurance policy, written just 2 weeks earlier, with her name on every line that mattered. But I didn't know any of that then. All I knew was the woman I built my life around had planned my death. And against all odds, I'd driven straight through it and lived to remember. The coma would end after 4 months. The betrayal never would. 3 days into consciousness, I was still learning how to exist again. My throat burned from weeks of silence, my body foreign, heavy like waking inside someone else's skin. The morning nurse had just left when the door opened, and a man stepped in with a briefcase and a nervous smile that didn't belong in a hospital room. Mr. Hale, he said, pushing his glasses up his nose. I'm relieved to see you awake. We need to discuss something urgent about your life insurance policy. My mother stiffened beside me. Can't this wait? He just woke up 3 days ago. I'm afraid it can't, Mrs. Hale, the man said softly. This has become a criminal matter. The words cut through the haze of painkillers. I forced myself upright, ribs screaming in protest. Deacon moved closer, helping me sit against the pillows. The man Kirkland opened his briefcase and drew out a thick folder. His hands shook slightly, or maybe it was just my vision still adjusting to light. Your wife, he said carefully, Miss Alina, attempted to claim your death benefit while you were still in a coma. The doctors gave you a 5% chance of survival after the first week. She came to our office with a death certificate. I blinked, but I wasn't dead. No, he said, his voice tightening. But she had the document forged, perfectly executed. She had every detail prepared, the story, the paperwork, the tears. She nearly walked away with the check. Nearly, Mason asked from the doorway, his face pale. Kirkland nodded. That's where it gets interesting. He opened the folder wider, revealing a beneficiary form. Our standard procedure requires verification before releasing funds on policies of this size. When we cross-checked the beneficiary designation, we found this. He handed me the page. The handwriting, Alina's, was unmistakable. But the name beside it read, Vera Calloway. I don't know anyone by that name. I rasped. Neither did we, Kirkland said. So we investigated. Vera Calloway is very real. She's been serving a life sentence in Greenville Federal Correctional for 3 years. My mind stumbled. Prison. For what? Insurance fraud and attempted murder. The room shifted. Time folded in on itself. He continued, voice low and deliberate. Her husband technically was a man named Raymond Tilden from Kansas City. She took out a $12 million policy on him, then arranged for his plane to crash. He survived only because bad weather grounded the flight. Deacon leaned forward, his voice cracking. So you're saying Alina knew this woman? Kirkland adjusted his glasses again, the gesture of a man who'd learned bad news can't ever sound gentle. Mr. Hale, Alina isn't your wife's real name. According to our joint investigation with the FBI, she's actually Maxine Calloway, Vera's younger sister. The room went silent. Even the heart monitor seemed to hesitate before racing faster. The Calloway sisters have been orchestrating these schemes for nearly a decade, Kirkland said. Vera operates from prison using contraband phones and outside contacts. She identifies wealthy targets, creates blueprints. Maxine builds the lies, false identities, careers, friendships, until her targets fall in love with a person who never existed. How many? My mother whispered. 7 that we know of. You're the 4th survivor. Deacon swore under his breath. Mason just stared at the floor. But why put her sister's real name? Mason asked. That seems too careless. Kirkland pulled another stack of documents from the folder, faded letters, covered in looping handwriting. They wrote to each other every week, he said, always signing as each other, a code, a habit. After 8 years of that ritual, Maxine wrote her sister's name out of instinct. That slip, 4 careless words, stopped the transfer, triggered the investigation, and ultimately saved your life. I looked at the form again. The ink swirled, graceful, deceptive, the same handwriting that once wrote me love notes. 4 words that separated my death from my survival. Where is she now? I asked. Alina, or Maxine, whatever her name is. The FBI arrested her 2 weeks ago in Miami, Kirkland said. She was boarding a flight to Costa Rica with 3 fake passports and $800,000 in cash, all traced to your accounts. Deacon's hands clenched into fists. She almost killed him for money. No one answered. The machines beeped, the light from the window cut across the bed, and somewhere deep inside, I felt something colder than betrayal, the understanding that the woman I loved didn't just leave me. She tried to erase me. 15 million, Kirkland corrected softly. 30 with the accidental death clause. Split evenly between the sisters enough to vanish forever. My mother's hand tightened around mine. The vitamins she gave you, she whispered, eyes shining with restrained fury. They tested them, Noah. Blood thinners. She was making sure that if you ever had an accident, you'd bleed out before help could find you. Colton spoke from the corner, his voice like gravel. The brake lines were cut to fail under heat and pressure. The mechanic said it was professional work, someone who knew exactly what they were doing. Maxine, the woman I'd loved as Alina, was arrested 2 weeks later in Miami. She was found in a first-class lounge, sipping champagne and waiting for her flight to Costa Rica. In her Louis Vuitton bag were 3 passports, Rebecca, Sterling, Jennifer Walsh, Diana Prescott, each with her photo, each another ghost she could have become. $800,000 in cash lay folded neatly between her clothes, every dollar withdrawn from my accounts in small increments while I lay dying. At the trial, I learned everything. The Calloway sisters had turned destruction into a craft. Vera, the elder, a mind sharpened to brilliance and madness, directed the schemes from inside prison. Using contraband phones and outside contacts, she researched targets with precision, men like me. Widowed or divorced, successful but not untouchable, with just enough loneliness to mistake attention for love. Maxine did the rest. She became whoever the plan required. Bianca, the realtor. Sandra, the nurse. Elena, the food blogger. Identities built with years of preparation, real classes, real jobs, fake hearts. By the time she made her mark, she was already someone the world believed existed. When the prosecutor asked her, why use your sister's real name? After 8 years of caution, Maxine turned to me. Her green eyes were colder than the air in that courtroom. I'd been signing her name for years, she said. It was habit. One moment of muscle memory destroyed everything. 8 years. 8 years of breakfasts and anniversaries, of laughter, of whispered I love yous, every one of them rehearsed. Every moment choreographed by someone who saw love as leverage. Then came the list of the others. James Morrison, a rancher, dead in a hunting accident. Paul Chen drowned in his pool. Robert Daines, lost to a warehouse fire. 4 more like me men who lived only because chance, instinct, or grace intervened. How did you choose them? The prosecutor asked. Vera chose, Maxine replied. I just played my roles. Did you ever feel anything for this man? A faint smile, satisfaction when the checks cleared. That's when I understood. Bianca, Alina, Maxine, none of them had ever existed. She was a character written by someone else, performed flawlessly until the curtain fell. My son Deacon helped me rebuild. He was the one who discovered she'd been poisoning me, small doses, enough to make me dizzy, enough to make a crash look natural. He found her planner one day, the one she'd guarded like scripture. Tiny red X's marked the calendar 3 weeks before the crash, counting down to my death. Colton became my business partner, steady and loyal. The morning of the accident, his text might have saved me if I'd read it. He'd uncovered that Bianca's sister, the one she introduced at our wedding, was an actress, paid $5,000 to play a role for a single day. I knew something was wrong, Colton told me once, late at night. I just didn't know it was evil. My mother moved in for 6 months. At 73, she became my nurse, my cook, my sentry. Every morning she'd hum in the kitchen while the smell of coffee, real coffee, drifted through the house. She fooled me too, she said once, setting a plate in front of me. But you can't blame yourself for believing in love, Noah. The world needs people who still do. The insurance company left the policy active. 15 million now transferred to Deacon, the apology written in paperwork, and waived fees. Kirkland himself brought the documents, his hands trembling as he passed them across the table. Vera Calloway, life without parole. Maxine, 40 years. Eligible for parole at 63 if time doesn't eat her first. And me? I drive the same road every morning. Highway 41, past the mountains that almost took me. The sunlight hits the curve just right now, the place where I should have died. And I think about the trust, how fragile it is, how deadly it can become. Sometimes the person sleeping beside you isn't a stranger, they're the danger wearing your favorite perfume. But I've also learned something else. Listen to the ones who love you. My brother saw what I refused to. My mother felt what I denied. And my son, he never called her mom. Always Bianca. Kids know. They always know. Past Devil's Curve, past the broken guardrail, and the scarred earth where my life could have ended. I drive that same road every morning. The light hits differently there now. Softer, forgiving. I think about that 1 second, the moment I turned the wheel. Survival isn't always about strength or courage or even luck. Sometimes it's about instinct, about one impossible choice made in a heartbeat. And sometimes it's your enemy's smallest mistake that becomes your miracle. The stores are thriving again, 12, soon to be 15. I named the newest one Second Chances. It felt right, a reminder that even from betrayal, something honest can still grow. If this story spoke to you, give it a like. Share it with someone who might need a little proof that rebuilding is possible. Your comments, your support, they mean more than you know. And remember, the people who truly love you aren't trying to control you, they're trying to protect you. So listen to them, always.